Shabbat Shalom and happy Thanksgiving. Revelation 14 tonight. And I'm the only one in this camera view, but
There are more of us.
say hi, everyone.
Hi.
So there's other people here. First thing we're going to do is turn to our Bibles because we're going to go through Revelation 14 today. It's a fairly short chapter. There's a good little bit to cover, though, and we'll probably do a little bit of a review as well. So as you guys are looking towards Revelation 14 and eating over there as well, just say a quick prayer. Father, thank you for your word. Thank you for continuing to bless us. Help us to be thankful in light of this season and in all seasons. In the name of Jesus, amen. So we've been going through the Revelation, sort of almost kind of one chapter a week. In Revelation 1, we see John on Patmos, and he actually sees the man he knew so well, who is the Son of God, but he sees him glorified. It is not a small matter, so that even John, who was the one that Jesus loved, freaked out about it a little bit. In Revelation 2 and 3, after being told to write it down, Jesus tells him some advice to the churches, some admonitions and some praises, and over again to hold fast. After those 7 letters to the 7 churches, which are in Asia Minor, Western Turkey now, John actually is pulled up into the throne room of heaven, and he sees the Father on the throne, the 4 living creatures surrounding, the 24 elders surrounding them, and all of heaven praising the Father and the Lamb, who are both in the center of the throne. In the transitioning into the 5th chapter of Revelation, we see a scroll that seems to be shockingly important, sealed up with 7 seals and written on the front and on the back. And we see John, who probably doesn't know why, I can't imagine he would know why, weeping and weeping because no one was worthy to open the scroll, to break its seals, or to read the contents of the scroll. And then one of the elders says to him, stop weeping, because the Lamb who's in the center of the throne is worthy to open the scroll, open the seals, and read the scroll. And they sing a song, which is called a new song, which seems to be at least part of the song of the Lamb that we're going to be talking about shortly. They say, worthy are you to take the book and to break its seals, for you were slain, and you purchased for God with your own blood men from every tribe and tongue and people and nation. You have made them to be a kingdom and priests to our God, and they will reign upon the earth. We also see Peter in, I don't know if it's 1st or 2nd Peter, mentioning that we are kings and priests, and using almost the exact same language as that, which suggests that we might not have gotten the order right of when these books were written. Or it might have just been the divine inspiration of the Holy Spirit, because God can work that way. We actually hear many angels join in right after that and say, worthy is the Lamb that was slain to receive power and riches and wisdom and might and honor and glory and blessing. And then everyone joins, not even only in heaven, but on heaven and on earth and under the earth and on the sea, and all the things in the sea join in and say, to him who sits on the throne and to the Lamb be blessing and honor and glory and dominion forever and ever. Every voice created. And then we see Jesus begin to open the scrolls, begin to open the seals. And the first 4, what's that, Jeff?
He's screaming right there.
See how it came up.
Is it doing okay?
It's doing it. Actually looks pretty awesome.
Oh, that's great. We have the first 4 seals that, let's remember, Jesus is opening. John was weeping because nobody was found worthy to open these seals. And the first 4 seals are the so-called, and that's in chapter 6 chapter 6 of the Revelation. The first four seals are these so-called four horsemen of the apocalypse. But what we need to realize is that these aren't sent by Satan. These aren't sent by the enemy forces of darkness. These are because Jesus was found worthy to break the seals and open the scroll. We have the first rider on a white horse. And I guess I'm going into a little more of a review than I was planning on. But we have the rider on the white horse who can neither be Messiah nor can he be the Antichrist. He can't be the Antichrist because he wouldn't be dressed in white in the prophetic language. He might be in our eyes, but never in God's eyes. And so it cannot be. He's also not the Lamb because the Lamb's the one breaking the seals. And the rider is coming forth at the beckoning of one of the four living creatures. The Lamb does not come forth at the beckoning of anybody but the Father. And I don't think I need to digress too much more on that, but there's other telltales in here. He's been given a bow and he's told to conquer, and he goes out and conquers. The voice that tells him to conquer is from the midst of the throne. It is Jesus himself and or the Father, if there's a distinction to be made at all, that are telling the rider on the white horse to conquer. The second seal, the second living creature says, come forward. And a red horse and the rider that sits on it is given a mega small sword, double-edged small sword, but it's called a mega sword, which is a really strange thing to have a mega macaron. I'm probably not saying it right, but the macaron, or however you say it, is actually a symbol of justice. So one of the, or maybe the only one I can think of, way to reconcile this mega small sword is to understand that when you see the Lady Justice, not that we're approving of her, but when you see the Lady Justice holding that small sword, that symbol of justice that is the small sword, having a mega one of those would be to dole out justice to a large extent to many people, or plenary ability to dole out justice. The text itself suggests that this is proper because the one on the red horse is not actually killing, but rather he's given the power to make men slay each other. By the way, that sword, that macaron, is not the sword that Jesus has coming out of his mouth, and it's not the sword that the fourth horseman has. Those are war swords, the one that Jesus has coming out of his mouth and the one that the fourth horseman has. The third seal, we have a rider on a black horse who comes forward, or rather goes out at the beckoning of the third living creature. The rider on the black horse, it says that he has a pair of scales. That might be a correct interpretation, but it's not likely. Most likely, he actually is holding a yoke. He is, the voice actually in the center of the throne says a quart of wheat. Again, the voice in the center of the four living creatures is the Father, the Son, or both. I don't know that we even need to make a distinction. We know that it's God or Jesus who's saying this. Says a quart of wheat for a day's wages, a denarius, and 3 quarts of barley for a day's wages, a denarius. And do not crush the oil and the wine. Yours will probably, your translation probably says do not damage or do not harm the oil or the wine. But I think what we're missing here is that the yoke, the imagery of the yoke is an imagery of burden. A day's wages for a loaf of bread, which is what a quart of wheat makes, a day's wages for 3 quarts of barley, and no crushing of grapes to make wine, no crushing of olives to make oil, suggests subsistence living, basically indentured servitude under this black horse paradigm.
So those 4 horses, none of them were the Antichrist.
Can't possibly be.
You know, someone told me the black horse was, and I'm like, no, I don't think so. I'm glad you.
We always try and fit the descriptions to what we are seeing. It's human nature and egocentrism to fit whatever we're seeing in the headlines to these things. If we are very careful about how they interrelate with each other and the language that God himself gives us in these things, we can do a lot of critical analysis. We can dispel a lot of the things that people before us have thought. And look, I've had wonderful teachers who I've disagreed with on every single thing in here, that I believe are wonderful Christian believers, but sorry, you don't have to be right about it. And I don't have to be right about everything in this, but I can promise you, none of these is the Antichrist. It
So-
wouldn't make sense.
Are these some of
If
these-
there was any of them, it would be the fourth, not any of the others. But it doesn't fit in with the paradigm we're in. The fourth one, seal is actually, again, when the Lamb breaks the fourth seal, the last living creature says, come. And John says he looked and he saw, it says an ashen horse or a pale horse in these different translations, but what it actually should say is a grass green horse. Because that's chloros is where we get chlorophyll. It's the color of grass, as in all flesh is grass, and the grass gets torched in the sun, which we'll see later. It says death and Hades was following him. Authority was given to them over a fourth of the earth to kill with the sword, with famine, with pestilence, and with the wild beasts of the earth. But if you remember, we actually were reading a lot of places in the Bible. And this is not necessarily, none of this, in fact, is what we would call the wrath of God. Not yet. This is something entirely different. And there's a reason that we know that. Most of all, there's a reason we know that, or there's two reasons we know that. First of all, because he's the one calling these things to be. Jesus is the one breaking these seals to make these things happen. And we're about to see affirmatively that none of those can be the wrath of God. Because when the Lamb breaks the fifth seal, he sees under the altar the souls of those who have been slain, and I'm reading it word for word, because of the word of God and because of the testimony they had maintained. They cry out with a loud voice, saying, "How long, O Lord, holy and true, will you refrain from judging and avenging our blood on those who dwell on the earth?" And they were given to each of them a white robe, and they were told that they should rest a little while longer, until the number of their fellow servants and their brethren who were to be killed, even as they had been, would be completed. And here we go right into the sixth seal. A great earthquake, the sun black as sackcloth made of hair, the moon turns to blood. We should be thinking of Joel and of Acts. And the stars of the sky falling to the earth. The sky splits apart, every mountain and island moved, and the kings of the earth and great man say that they hide in the caves and the rocks and the mountains, which remember, mountains are kingdoms. The rocks are men's great fortresses. They're an analogy for men's great fortresses. They're hiding in the things that men think matter. And they say to the mountains and the rocks, fall on us and hide us from the presence of him who sits on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb, for the great day of wrath has come. So in the fifth seal, they say, why hasn't it happened yet? And they're told to wait a little longer. And in the sixth seal, they say, uh-oh, here comes the wrath. Right? And we should be thinking of Amos whenever we get to this point. And Hosea 10, and Isaiah 2, and Psalm 97. After this, I saw four angels standing at the four corners of the earth, holding back the four winds of the earth. And you know why they're holding back the four winds of the earth? They're holding back the wrath until each of those who is supposed to has the seal of the living God put on their forehead. When we talk about the seal of the living God, we should be looking at Ezekiel 7 through 9. We should be talking about those who sigh and cry, those who mourn for the detestable things done in the name of God and in the name of his house and in his house. It's no small matter if we're believers today. Flee from her, my people, lest you be caught in her sin, is what we'll read later. And then we see who's actually sealed on their foreheads. The servants of the living God. 12,000 from each tribe. Noticeably missing is Dan. Joseph is represented as both Joseph and as Manasseh. Did I get that right? I did get that right. Okay. So I say noticeably missing is Dan because he's one of the original sons of of Israel. It's important right here. The 144,000 are not all Jews. There's only 12,000 from the tribe of Judah. And if we were being extremely generous to what the definition of a Jew is, we would actually only see 36,000 of these people who are Jews.
Benjamin, Judah, and Levi.
Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. And Levi's really stretching it because
Yeah.
Levi was dispersed throughout, although some of them did roll to the southern kingdom whenever the Assyria took the northern kingdom into occupation. But a Jew can only be either just the tribe of Judah or Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. So we have 144,000 here, only 36,000 at most, which are Jews. The rest they don't even know their identity because nobody on earth says, hey, I'm a Reubenite. And if they do, they don't know.
So what is a Reubenite?
You might be. You might be. I might be. We don't know. God knows. And then, for those people who think that only 144,000 are going to be admitted into the kingdom, right after the 144,000 are sealed, John says, after these things I looked, and behold, a great multitude no one could count, from every nation, all tribes, peoples, and tongues, standing before the throne. Remember, this is in heaven. Before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed in white robes, with palm branches in their hands, crying out with a loud voice, saying, salvation to our God who sits on the throne and to the Lamb. So 144,000 only? Absolutely not. A great multitude, no one can count, will be redeemed. And then, we're told who they are. One of the elders asked John, who are these clothed in white robes? And John says, I don't know, you know. And he said to John, these are the ones who have come out of the great tribulation. They have washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. For this reason, they are before the throne of God. Again, tell me again, there's only 144,000. And they serve him day and night in his temple. And he who sits on the throne will spread his tabernacle over them. They will never hunger nor thirst anymore, nor will the sun beat down on them, nor any heat. For the Lamb in the center of the throne will be their shepherd, will guide them to springs of water of life, and God will wipe every tear from their eyes. And then the Lamb breaks the seventh seal, and we see silence in heaven for about a half an hour. We're told in the scripture only one time that heaven is silent. It's when God decides to get up. Because everybody shuts up when he gets up, right? That's, I believe, Zephaniah 1. I think I have that right. And then we see smoke and incense, and the incense is the prayers of the saints. And then we see 7 angels with 7 trumpets, and they sound, and there's all kinds of mayhem comes about. We're going to skip over it a little bit. Go back and watch those videos if anybody's interested. These are pretty well addressed. All of this was because the Lamb is breaking the seals. When we start to think that this is a story about, there's a rapture and then all hell's breaking loose on earth and everything's being destroyed because Satan, we missed the whole story. We missed the whole story, right? We're going to skip ahead. We're going to skip to the great sign that appears in the heavens. The woman clothed with the sun, the moon under her feet, on her head a crown of 12 stars. She was to give with child, and she cried out, being in pain, to give birth.
Where are you?
Yeah, what chapter is that?
Revelation 12. Sorry, that was Revelation 12. She gives birth to a male child, a son who is to rule the nations with a rod of iron. There's many, many, many people who say, oh, this is a flashback. Well, and I understand why they think it must be, because Jesus is the male child who's to rule the nations with a rod of iron. Except, this isn't a flashback. This is, very clearly actually, the second fulfillment of Isaiah 7:10 through 12:6. Talked about in Hosea 13. This is the birth of the kingdom. King and kingdom are spoken of synonymously in prophecy. This is the birth of the kingdom, not just the birth of the king. When we read in Isaiah 7 through 12, what we actually see is the thing that is read every December when we're celebrating the birth of Jesus, about the behold, the virgin will give birth. God himself giving Ahaz a sign. But if you read on, if you read behind it and you read on after it, there's a whole bunch of things that happen in that Isaiah passage that never happened in Jesus' time. The king of Assyria did not descend upon the land in Jesus' time. And that's absolutely required by the text in Isaiah. It says, before the child knows the difference between right and wrong, the king will descend upon the land. Won't make much sense at all. And in fact, we know that Jesus talks about the king of Assyria as being a prophetic future event. So this woman giving birth overlays on top of Isaiah 7 through 10, and I think that's been addressed on video as well, and probably went further and deeper into it than I had expected to on that particular day. So as we read Satan, the red dragon, which is Satan, warring with Michael and his angels, we're told some Christian lore about fallen angels and that Satan used to have some high position in heaven. None of it's biblical. But what is biblical is Daniel 10:1 through 12:13 talks about the war between Michael and Satan. And it talks about it as a future event. And as the angel who's interpreting it for Daniel says, it is a future event. And he says, seal this up because it's for the time of the end. So we are actually in a consecutive paradigm here with the woman giving birth and Michael and his angels making war with Satan and his messengers. And by the way, Michael wins. Guess why? Guess why? Satan's no match for Michael. As soon as God says the word, it's done. And he's no match for the smallest word of the Father, for the slightest word of the Father. And that's an important thing that Christians, it's easy for us to forget. And for this reason, in chapter 12, verse 12, we'll go to 11. They overcame him because of the blood of the Lamb. You know what? They is not an appropriate thing to say, is it? We'll go back to 10. I heard a loud voice in heaven saying, now the salvation and the power and the kingdom of our God and the authority of his Christ have come. For the accuser of our brethren have been thrown down, he who accuses them before God day and night. We've heard Satan called the accuser more than once. They overcame him because of the blood of the Lamb and because of the word of their testimony. And they did not love their own lives, even when faced with death. For this reason, rejoice, O heavens, and you who dwell in them. Woe to the earth and the sea, because the devil has come down to you, having great wrath, knowing that he has only a short time. And it says the dragon goes off to persecute the child. The woman is whisked into the wilderness for a time, times and half a time. And that is a very common 3.5 years, 42 months, a time, times and half a time, 1,260 days, all refers to the same amount of time. And I think we've digressed on what the potential meanings of those are, but we will again at some point. Well, then the dragon stands on the sand of the seashore. If your translation says the dragon stands on the seashore, it's missing a very important word. The dragon stands on the sands of the seashore, and your offspring will be like the sands of the sea, as it were. And then it seems at the behest of the dragon, the beast comes up out of the sea. This is the infamous one, right? The beast with 7 heads, 10 horns, the mouth of a lion, the feet of a bear, the body of a leopard, and I'm sorry? Yeah, I'm sorry. This is Revelation 13. And he has 7 heads and 10 horns. What we actually established, I think last time, was that this one beast that John sees rising up out of the sea is the very same as all 4 of the beasts that Daniel saw rising out of the sea. Now, we assume that Daniel saw them consecutively, maybe wrongly. He may have seen them all and just listed them as he just felt like listing them, or he may have seen them rise up at the same time, or he may have seen them rise up consecutively. That's Daniel 7. And also reference Hosea 13, verses 7 and 8, because that has a little bit to do with this. But what we do see is that what John sees is all four of Daniel's beasts smashed into one. Whether it's the resurrection of those beasts or whether it's the same actual fulfillment or the ultimate fulfillment of what Daniel was actually seeing, which I believe is more likely because, again, this is about the time of the end. That's what Daniel was told. So then it says that one of the heads of the beast looked as if it had been slain, and the fatal wound was healed. The whole earth was amazed and followed after the beast. Well, what I can tell you, and we're going to read about later, is that the beast is a political system. It can be no other because it talks about the heads being kings, horns are military powers, and beasts themselves are kingdoms in all of the prophecy every time God uses them and interprets them. So God's a God of order. If he is always interpreting something the same way, we can rely on that interpretation as we move forward. This beast is a political system. And then there's another beast that comes up, though. This beast was given a mouth to speak arrogant words, blasphemies, and authority to act again for 42 months, which is the same as 1,260 days. He speaks blasphemies against God. He makes war with the saints and overpowers them. By the way, he's the one who kills the two witnesses a couple of chapters ago. What's up?
So going back to what you're saying about the horns being armies.
Yes.
And the heads being kingdoms. So why would there be more armies than kingdoms?
It's an interesting question.
How many armies would you say we have within the world? Middle East.
We are going to
7 specific kingdoms. So it seemed like the numbers would matter.
actually let's flip to that. Let's flip to
You
that.
look at say like the NATO has all those different armies under the one.
Because that's it. Armies versus groups common within this.
I don't know. So I'm
Yeah,
asking questions. I asked.
Right? Good question,
Because
Jack.
I didn't know me.
Yeah, it's going to be around chapter 18.
Chapter 18.
Yeah.
Of Revelation.
Where's that go?
Yeah.
6, 7.
I think. Might not be 18.
Babylon's fall.
We have an interpretation in here somewhere. If you guys find it,
If it goes into 17,
it might go. It
says,
might,
says
it might
I
be.
will explain to you the mystery of the woman.
That's what we're looking for.
So you're talking 17.
Verse 9.
Thank you, Jeff.
17.
17.
He's in 17:6. He says, "I saw the woman drunk with the blood of the saints, with the blood of the witnesses of Jesus. When I saw her, I wondered greatly. And the angel said to me, 'Why do you wonder? I'll tell you the mystery of this woman and of the beast that carries her, which has the 7 heads and the 10 horns. The beast that you saw was and is not, and is about to come up out of the abyss and go to destruction. And those who dwell on the earth, whose names have not been written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, will wonder when they see the beast, that he was and is not and will come. Here is the mind which has wisdom.'" It's weird because the mind which has wisdom also knows 666, right? It's almost the same phraseology. "The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sits." Now remember, mountains are euphemisms for kingdoms, right? We've talked about that a long time ago, many, many weeks ago. You guys remember that? Okay. And I showed it. I mean, we showed it in the scripture too, not just me saying it. They are 7 kings. Now remember, in prophecy, king and kingdom, spoken of synonymously, right? We've talked about that too. So kingdoms and their kings. And then it says 7 kings, 5 have fallen, 1 is, and the other has not yet come. But when he comes, he must remain for a little while. The beast which was and is not is himself also an 8th and is one of the 7. He goes to destruction. The 10 horns you saw, which you saw, are 10 kings who have not yet received a kingdom, but they receive authority, i.e., a kingdom, as a king with the beast for 1 hour. These have one purpose: they give their power and authority to the beast. So these horns are not proper parts of the beast, but they lay down their armies at the foot of the eighth king, which is the entirety of this beast. Are you seeing that?
Right.
It's almost like completely spelled out here.
So the armies aren't intertwined with the 7 kingdoms that they've already counted.
7 of those, maybe. I question mark, right?
Right.
But then there's certainly at least 3 that are laying down and offering their kingdoms, or their kingdoms are being taken potentially by intrigue, by that little horn that uprooted, if you recall that.
Right.
There's a lot of potential suggestion for that. People will not notice that the little horn is actually a little horn. It uproots 3. Well, it says it's more stout than its fellows. It says it's a little horn but larger than the other horns. It has eyes to see, and it has a mouth that speaks blaspheming words. Well, we saw about the blaspheming words in 13 as well. And it says that he will seek to change the times and the seasons. The times should actually be the Moedim. I'm sorry, the law, the times in the law. It should say the Moedim, which is the holidays, and the Torah, which is the law of God. We're going to get to that in 14 here again. This is a common theme you'll notice in the conversation of the Revelation. But back to what we see, these 7 heads are sort of, it seems, sequential leaders of this beast. It almost sounds like it goes into Nebuchadnezzar's dream of the statue and Daniel's interpretation of it, right? You, O king, are that head of gold, after you come another king. Are you recalling what I'm talking about? And so it almost sounds like this beast is sort of reflecting back on that statue, since 5 have already fallen, 1 is, and 1 is yet to come.
And the 8th is the beast. Now, what does your Revelation 17:12 say?
Revelation 17:12 says, the 10 horns which you saw are 10 kings who have not yet received a kingdom, but they receive their authority as kings with the beast for 1 hour. So when the 8th king rises, the final iteration of this, those 10 kings will lay down their armies at the feet and allow the one beast to control all of their armies. And as Wes just pointed out, yeah, it says verse 13, thank you, Mom. They have one purpose. They give their power and authority to the beast. And Wes, was that you who just pointed out, like there's a lot of coalitions in the world? I mean, right now we have a bunch of armies that are laying down their rights to, or basically the ownership of those armies. They're putting them under, their own sovereignty of their armies, and they're putting them under other kingdoms, under other kings, or under other leadership. So this is not an uncommon thing. We send troops to the UN all the time, for example. I'm not saying that is the interpretation, although one might look twice. I'm definitely not saying that is the interpretation, but we're in the realm there of that sort of type of conversation, a typology.
Could they also be successors?
The 10, the 10, it doesn't seem like it, because it says they all give their authority for 1 hour to the beast. It's like for that last hour, the way that it's written in there. Now the 7 heads, those are succession. It does appear.
Right.
So there might be a both for 7 of them, and then an add-on of 3 at the end. That's a high potential for such a thing as that, especially when you compare it back to Daniel and the uprooting of the little horn, which happened on actually the ram and the he-goat. It's the vision right after the 4 beasts of Daniel. I'm sorry, I'm jumping around a lot here, Maria. I have to apologize.
I know, I'm not getting it, but that's okay.
There will be a time.
You're just going so fast.
Yeah, because it's review, and we're going to get back to 14 here any minute now. And then we'll go slower and we'll go methodical. And then at the end of it, when I turn off the video, we'll go back through and we'll deal with some stuff and questions and answers and stuff. The next beast that shows up comes up out of the earth, not the sea, has 2 horns like a lamb, but speaks like a dragon. Exercises all the authority of the first beast in his presence. makes those who are on the earth, who dwell in the earth, worship the first beast whose wound was healed, performs great signs.
Which chapter?
I'm sorry, I'm back to Revelation 13 and we're in verse 12. He makes those on the earth and those who dwell in it worship the first beast whose fatal wound was healed. He performs great signs so that he even makes fire come out of heaven to earth in the presence of men. And he deceives those who dwell on the earth because of the great signs, telling those who dwell on the earth to make an image to the beast. And so what do we see? We see absolutely false religion here. Not even just false religion, but false Jesus. He looks like a lamb, speaks like the devil, right? He performs great signs. He performs the same signs as the two witnesses were able to make fire come down from heaven, right? And it says flat out in chapter 13, verse 14, he deceives those who dwell on the earth because of those signs. And he causes, and then it goes back, we go to 16. He causes all the small and the great, rich and poor, and free men and slaves to be given a mark on their right hand or on their forehead. And no one may buy or sell except those who have the mark, the name or the number of his name. And the number is 666. And we talked about Solomon and his 666 talents of gold tributed to him, and how it was the beginning of him acting about everything that God warned Israel that a king would do. Everything bad that a king would do. And Solomon's life, he went from being the wisest man, the mind of wisdom, to being unfortunate. Let God decide. And here we are. Revelation 14. I'm going to read it. Then I looked, and behold, it's quite a transition, right? Then I looked, and behold, the Lamb was standing on Mount Zion, and with him 144,000, having his name and the name of his Father written on their foreheads. And I heard a voice from heaven like the sound of many waters, and like the sound of loud thunder. And the voice which I heard was like the sound of harpists playing on their harps. And they sang a new song before the throne, before the four living creatures and the elders. No one could learn the song except the 144,000 who had been purchased from the earth. These are those who have not been defiled with women, for they have kept themselves pure. These follow the Lamb wherever he goes. They have been purchased from among men as the first fruits to God and from the Lamb and to the Lamb. Hi, Natalia. No lie was found in their mouths. They are blameless. And I saw another angel flying in mid-heaven. Again, that's where the eagle was flying, right? Just right at the noonday sun. Having the eternal gospel to preach to those who live on the earth, and to every nation and tribe and tongue and people. And he said with a loud voice, fear God and give him glory, because the hour of his judgment has come. Worship him who made the heaven and the earth and sea and the springs of waters. And another angel, second one, followed, saying, fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great, she who made all the nations drink of the wine of the passion of her immorality. Then another angel, a third one, followed them, saying with a loud voice, if anyone worships the beast and his image and receives the mark on his forehead or on his hand, he also will drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is mixed in full strength in the cup of his anger. And he will be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. And the smoke of their torment goes up forever and ever. They have no rest day and night, those who worship the beast in his image, and whoever receives the mark of his name. Here is the perseverance of the saints who keep the commandments of God and their faith in Jesus. You guys see the kind of commonality of the two witnesses there? And I heard a voice from heaven saying, right, blessed are the dead who die in the Lord from now on. Yes, says the Spirit, so that they may rest from their labors, for their deeds follow with them. Then I looked, and behold, a white cloud, and sitting on the cloud was one like the Son of Man, having a golden crown on his head, and a sharp sickle in his hand. Another angel came out of the temple, crying out with a loud voice to him who sat on the cloud, "Put in your sickle and reap, for the hour to reap has come, because the harvest of the earth is ripe." Then he who sat on the cloud swung his sickle over the earth, and the earth was reaped. Another angel came out of the temple which is in heaven, and he also had a sharp sickle. Then another angel, the one who has power over fire, came out from the altar, and he called with a loud voice to him who had the sharp sickle, saying, "Put in your sharp sickle and gather the clusters from the vine of the earth, because her grapes are ripe." So the angel swung his sickle to the earth and gathered of the earth and threw them into the great winepress of the wrath of God. And the winepress was trodden outside the city, and the blood came out of the winepress up to the horses' bridles for a distance of 200 miles. It's a little rough, not gonna lie. Let's read Matthew. And I haven't told you where yet because I don't remember. I didn't write it down. It's either like somewhere between 12 and 14, or it's 24. Don't ask me why. I think it's one of those two. I could be wrong about both of them. Oh, we're good. So 24. He just told the disciples that every stone in the temple was going to be knocked down and not one would be laying on another. So they come to him as he's sitting on the Mount of Olives privately. And they say, starting in 24 verse 3, "Tell us, when will these things happen? And," second question, sorry, that's my notes, "what will be the sign of your coming? And," third question, again, my notes, "the end of the age." So they asked 3 questions. They thought it was one, right? They thought the temple would exist until Jesus came back. Not quite, right? Jesus answered, and we're going to read the whole thing because it's a lot, but then we're going to focus on certain parts. Jesus answered and said to them, "See to it that no one misleads you. For many will come in my name," that is in Jesus' name, "saying, 'I am the Christ,' and will mislead many." Again, that's saying Jesus is the Christ, and they'll mislead many. You guys hearing that? "Many will come in my name saying, 'I am the Christ,' and will mislead many. You will be hearing of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not frightened, for those things must take place, but that is not the end. For nation will rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom, and in various places there will be famines and earthquakes. But all these things are merely the beginning of the birth pangs." Remember that woman giving birth a little bit ago? "Then they will deliver you to tribulation, and they will kill you, and you'll be hated by all nations because of my name. At that time, many will fall away and will betray one another and hate one another. Many false prophets will arise and will mislead many. And because lawlessness is increased," by the way, Jesus spoke it, Aramaic/Hebraic, and so he would have said Torahlessness. "Because lawlessness is increased, most people's love will grow cold. But the one who endures to the end, he will be saved. This gospel of the kingdom shall be preached to the whole world as a testimony to all nations." Remember what we just read about the angel in the mid-heaven preaching the gospel to all nations? "This gospel of the kingdom shall be preached to the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come. Therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation, which was spoken of through the prophet Daniel, standing in the holy place, let the reader understand. Then those who are in Judea must flee to the mountains. Whoever is on the housetop must not go down to get the things that are out of the house, that are in his house. Whoever is in the field must not turn back to get his cloak. Woe to those who are pregnant and those who are nursing babies in those days. Pray that your flight will not be in winter or on a Sabbath. For then there will be a great tribulation, such as not occurred since the beginning of the world until now, nor ever will. Unless those days had been cut short, no life would have been saved. But for the sake of the elect, those days will be cut short. Then, if anyone says to you, 'Behold, here is the Christ,' or 'There he is,' do not believe him. For false Christs and false prophets will arise, and will show great signs and wonders so as to mislead, if possible, even the elect. Behold, I've told you in advance. So if they say to you, behold, he's in the wilderness, do not go out. Or behold, he is in the inner rooms, do not believe them. For just as the great light comes from the east and is seen even to the west, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. Wherever the corpse is, there the vultures will gather. Did you guys hear how many things are paralleled when we've interpreted rightly through like Revelation 12 through 14? How many things are paralleled in this one story? We're going to keep going though. Immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened, the moon will not give its light, and the stars will fall from the sky, and the powers of the heavens will be shaken. And again, we see Joel in Acts, and we see in Revelation where we were just reading, not 12 and 14, but I think it was around, what, 10? 9 or 10? And then the sign of the Son of Man will appear in the sky, and then all the tribes of the earth will mourn. And they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of the sky with great power and great glory. He will send forth his angels with a great trumpet, and they will gather together his elect from the four winds. Remember that sickle and the reaping? From one end of the sky to the other. Now that's important. And we're going to read something else too. I need to find, where are the parables?
Which one?
The kingdom of heaven is like,
25.
I think it's around 14 or 12.
There's a whole bunch of them. 25.
Oh, there's a bunch of
There's
them.
25, 26.
No.
Everything after 6. 6 is the Lord's Prayer, and then after that it goes.
Here we go. We're going to jump around. We're in Matthew 13 now. Because this is exactly what we were reading a minute ago, just told differently. I can say that. Did you hear that? I said it confidently, not maybe. You'll see why in a minute. That day Jesus went out. Let me make sure because he actually. I'm sorry. There's two different parables that are kind of smashed together. We're going to go to Matthew 13, 24. I do that all the time because there's two seed parables. I mix them up. So Matthew 13, verse 24. Jesus presented another parable. By the way, Matthew does not do these things in order. So we don't have to read the one before to understand this one, although he does them in sort of a parallelism so they help you understand or juxtapose, because he says the kingdom of heaven is like, and then he says another time Jesus said the kingdom of heaven is like. So when you compare them, you get more of a round view. Matthew was not trying to go chronological, so don't assume that these were told even the same year necessarily, right? So again, Matthew 13, verse 24. Jesus presented another parable to them, saying, the kingdom of heaven, oh, well, that sounds like it was to them, the same people, right? Sorry. The kingdom of heaven may be compared to a man who sowed good seed in his field. But while his men were sleeping, the enemy came and sowed tares among the wheat and went away. But when the wheat sprouted and bore grain, then the tares became evident also. The slaves of the landowner came and said to him, Sir, do you not sow good seed in your field? How then does it have tares? And he said to them, an enemy has done this. Then the slaves said to him, do you want us then to go and gather them up? But he said, no, for while you're gathering up the tares, you may uproot the wheat with them. Allow both to grow together until the harvest. And in the time of the harvest, I'll say to the reapers, first, gather up the tares and bind them into bundles and burn them up, but gather the wheat into my barn. Now we're going to skip because he actually tells a different parable. In verse 36, he continues on this conversation, though, because the disciples, he left the crowd, went into the house. His disciples came to him and said, what? Now they said, explain to us the parable of the tares of the field. So this couldn't be more plain. In verse, that's Matthew 13, verse 37. Jesus says, the one who sows the good seed is the Son of Man. The field is the world. As for the good seed, these are the sons of the kingdom. The tares, sons of the evil one. The enemy who sowed them is the devil. The harvest is the end of the age, and the reapers are angels. So just as the tares are gathered up and burned with fire, so it shall be at the end of the age. The Son of Man will send forth his angels. They will gather out of his kingdom all the stumbling blocks and those who commit lawlessness, Torahlessness, and will throw them into the furnace of fire. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Then the righteous will shine forth as the sun in the kingdom of their Father. He who has ears, let him hear. It's the same story, right?
Yeah.
It's the exact same story.
But it's
That's
more
insane.
clear.
It's super clear. We can overlay Matthew 13 through 13:24 through 30, and then the interpretation 37 through 43 directly on that portion of the Revelation with no concerns whatsoever. It's just what it is. We don't have to wonder about that interpretation. Isn't it beautiful? It's nice when he does that for us. So I couldn't wait to get to that part. We'll step back. We're back in Revelation. I always fail to do that. Sorry, guys. Running back to Revelation 14. So I have some notes. This big notepad here. You guys like my notes for today? Taking Post-its from work. Uh-oh. Did I just admit that? That's not good.
Yeah.
So going back to 14, early in 14. We have like lots of stuff about these stories. I actually had to pick and choose what to pull up. Let's flip to Isaiah 18. Well, let's read first 14:1. Then I looked, behold, the Lamb was standing on Mount Zion, with him 144,000, having his name and the name of his Father written on their foreheads. What don't they have written on their forehead?
The mark of the beast.
666.
Do you notice that this is very either A or B? You guys seeing that? You either have the mark, the signature. It's not the same mark, incidentally. You either have the seal of the Father, which is actually like a signature, or you have the tattoo of the beast. And it's fun because you get to choose. Isn't that nice? So let's read Isaiah 18. Every time I look at myself in this camera, it's like only me, and there's so much room around me.
You're not allowed.
I do. I look all loud. Like I just have like a fake track of
Do
friends.
it to throw things at you so they know there are people here.
They'll just think that that's like some
Laughing buttons.
Just
Set-
get up and like walk. past
Amen.
the
set up trebuchet or something.
front.
Isaiah 18.
The praise Jesus button. Amen button. Praise Jesus.
Preach on, brother.
Let's go. You know what? We'll just start focusing in around verse 3 and then really focus in around verse 5, 6, and 7.
Isaiah 18,
Yeah.
verse 3.
It was hard to even decide which portions of this to read because all of this lays heavily on the Revelation, as we're finding so many things do, right? Alas, O land of whirring wings, which lies beyond the rivers of Cush, which sends envoys by sea, even in papyrus vessels. Hey, that's enough over there. So,
Where-
distracting.
where are you
You're not reading.
18.
Isaiah 18.
Isaiah
2.
More than two. Bedford.
Go, swift messengers, to a nation tall and smooth, to a people feared far and wide, a powerful and oppressive nation whose land the rivers divide. By the way, smooth might be pale. All you inhabitants of the world and dwellers on the earth, as soon as a standard is raised on the mountains, you'll see it. As soon as a trumpet is blown, you'll hear it. For thus Yahuwah has told me, I will look from my dwelling place quietly, like dazzling heat in the sunshine, like a cloud of dew in the heat of harvest. For before the harvest, as soon as the bud blossoms, and the flower becomes a ripening grape. Then he will cut off the sprigs with pruning knives and remove and cut away the spreading branches. They will be left together for mountain birds of prey and for the beasts of the earth. And the birds of prey will spend the summer feeding on them, and all the beasts of the earth will spend harvest time on them. At that time, a gift of homage will be brought to the Lord Yahuwah of hosts from a people tall and smooth or pale, even from a people feared far and wide, a powerful and oppressive nation whose land the rivers divide, to the place of the name of Yahuwah of hosts, even to Mount Zion. The oracle concerning Egypt. Behold, Yahuwah is riding on a swift cloud and is about to come to Egypt. The idols of Egypt will tremble at his presence, and the heart of the Egyptians will melt within them. I will incite Egyptian against Egyptian. They will fight, each fight against his brother, and each against his neighbor, city against city, and kingdom against kingdom. Are you guys reading this? Then the spirit of the Egyptians will be demoralized within them, and I will confound their strategy. So they will resort to idols and ghosts of the dead and to mediums and spirits. Moreover, I will deliver the Egyptians into the hand of a cruel master, and a mighty king will rule over them, declares Yahuwah, the God of armies. The waters from the sea will dry up. The river will be parched and dry. The canals will emit a stench. The streams of Egypt will thin out and dry up. The reeds and rushes will rot away. The bulrushes by the Nile, edge of the Nile, and all the sown fields of the Nile will become dry and no more. At any rate, like I said, all of this is critical. All of this is worthwhile. I highly recommend reading all of it. But stepping back, why did I read this? I forget.
Pruning of the grapes and all that again.
Yeah, it sort of weighs on this, right? It's like before the harvest, and it's about there's so many things that are talking about the same things. By the way, it might be talking about us, maybe. I'm gonna say big maybe.
True that.
A nation tall and smooth, feared far and wide,
Denmark.
whose nation is split by a river.
Denmark.
Oh, Denmark. Let's try Isaiah 24.
Sorry. I think we're Babylon.
I understand why you think that. And I think we're definitely at least one of them heads or one of those horns, aren't we? It's hard to imagine if we still exist at the time that the beast finally has its last hour. It's hard to imagine we won't be one of those horns because it says all the nations. And in fact, we're going to read something that's really poignant to that.
We still in Isaiah?
Isaiah 24, yeah. Behold, Yahuwah lays waste to the earth, devastates it, distorts its surface, scatters its inhabitants. The people will be like the priest, the servant like his master, the maid like her mistress, the buyer like the seller, the lender like the borrower, the creditor like the debtor. The earth will be completely laid waste, completely despoiled, for Yahuwah has spoken his word. The earth mourns and withers, the world fades and withers. The exalted of the people of the earth fade away. The earth is also polluted by its own inhabitants, for they transgressed the law, violated statutes, and broke the everlasting covenant. Wait, whose laws, guys? You don't think they mean some random laws made up by men. That's not what God means, right? Torah. Yeah, that word right there, transgressed laws, transgressed Torah. Therefore, a curse devours the earth. Those who live in it are held guilty. Therefore, the inhabitants of the earth are burned, and few men are left. The new wine mourns, the vine decays, all the merry-hearted sigh. The gaiety of tambourines ceases, the noise of revelers stops. The gaiety of the harp ceases. They do not drink wine with song. Strong drink is bitter to those who drink it. The city of chaos is broken down. Every house is shut up so that no one may enter. There is an outcry in the streets concerning the wine. Sound like a black horse to you? All joy turns to gloom. The gaiety of the earth is banished. Desolation is left in the city, and the gate is battered to ruins. For thus it will be in the midst of the earth among the peoples, as the shaking of an olive tree, as the gleanings when the grape harvest is over. They raise their voices, they shout for joy, the cry out from the west concerning the majesty of Yahuwah. Therefore glorify Yahuwah in the east, the name of Yahuwah, the God of Israel, in the coastlands of the sea. From the ends of the earth we hear songs, glory to the righteous one. But I say, woe to me, alas for me, deal treacherously, and the deal very treacherously. Terror and pit and snare confront you, O inhabitant of the earth. Then it will be that he who flees the report of disaster will fall into the pit. He who climbs out of the pit will be caught in the snare, for the windows above are open, and the foundations of the earth shake. The earth is broken asunder, the earth is split through. The earth is shaken violently. Sound familiar? The earth reels to and fro like a drunkard, and it totters like a shack. For its transgression is heavy upon it, and it will fall never to rise again. And so it will happen on that day that Yahuwah will punish the host of heaven on high and the kings of the earth on earth. They will be gathered together like prisoners in the dungeon and will be confined in the prison. And after many days, they will be punished. Then the moon will be abashed and the sun ashamed. For Yahuwah of armies will reign on Mount Zion and in Jerusalem, and his glory will be before his elders. But it's not all doom and gloom.
Verse 26. Chapter 26.
Shall we flip to chapter 26?
26, chapter 25, got good stuff in it.
Absolutely.
Let's keep reading then.
26.
I like the food part, 25. That's what,
You haven't had enough?
this is a foretaste of glory divine.
Indeed it is. The Feast of Tabernacles is a foretaste of the ultimate wedding feast.
Yep.
It's a celebration of what God has in store for us. It's a celebration of the creation, and it's the only 8-day festival on the calendar, only proper 8-day festival on the calendar, which is the last day is like significant of renewal, which is kind of cool, right? Incidentally, it's also probably Jesus' birthday and probably Thanksgiving. Were actually Feast of Tabernacles. So, the first Thanksgiving. I don't know about the ones after that. So where are we? Isaiah 25 and 26. We should be reading. Is that what I'm being told by my
Yeah, man.
non-existent fake track
That
friends?
brings the good from the bad. Lays it out there for you.
Oh yeah, look at that. Let's just jump into 25:6. Yahuwah of hosts will prepare a lavish banquet for all peoples on this mountain. A banquet of aged wine, choice pieces with marrow and refined aged wine. And on this mountain he will swallow up the covering which is over all peoples, even the veil which is stretched over all nations. He will swallow up death for all time. And the Lord God will wipe tears away from all faces, and he will remove the reproach of his people from all the earth. For Yahuwah has spoken. And it will be said in that day, behold, this is our God for whom we have waited, that he might save us. This is Yahuwah for whom we have waited. Let us rejoice and be glad in his salvation. For the hand of Yahuwah will rest on this this mountain, and Moab will be trodden down in his place. As straw is trodden down in the water of a manure pile. And he will spread out his hands in the middle of it as a swimmer spreads out his hands to swim. But the Lord will lay low his pride together with the trickery of his hands. The unassailable fortifications of your walls he will bring down, lay low and cast to the ground, even to the dust. In this day, the song will be sung in the land of Judah We have a strong city. He set up walls and ramparts for security. Open the gates that the righteous nation may enter, the one that remains faithful. The steadfast of mind you will keep in perfect peace, because he trusts in you, trusts in Yahuwah forever. For in God, Yahuwah, we have an everlasting rock. He has brought low those who dwell on high, the unassailable city. He lays it low. He lays it low to the ground. He casts it to the dust. The foot will trample it, the feet of the afflicted, the steps of the helpless. The way of the righteous is smooth. O upright one, make the path of the righteous level. Indeed, while following the ways of your judgments, O Yahuwah, we have waited for you eagerly. Your name, even your memory, is the desire of our souls. At night, my soul longs for you. Indeed, my spirit within me seeks you diligently. For when the earth experiences your judgments, the inhabitants of the world learn righteousness. Though the wicked is shown favor, he does not learn righteousness. He deals unjustly in the land of uprightness and does not perceive the majesty of Yahuwah. O Yahuwah, your hand is lifted up, yet they do not see it. They see your zeal for the people and are put to shame. Indeed, fire will devour your enemies. Yahuwah, you will establish peace for us. Since you have performed for us all your works, O Yahuwah our God, other masters besides you have ruled us, but through you alone we confess your name. The dead will not live, the departed spirits will not rise. Therefore you have punished and destroyed them, and you have wiped out all remembrance of them. You have increased the nation, O Yahuwah. You have increased the nation. You are glorified. You have extended all the borders of the land, O Yahuwah. They sought you in distress. They could only whisper a prayer. Your chastening was upon them. As the pregnant woman approaches the time to give birth, she writhes out and cries out in her labor pains. Thus were we before you, O Yahuwah. You hear that? The kingdom? You were pregnant. We were pregnant. We writhed in labor. We gave birth as it seems only to wind. We could not accomplish deliverance for the earth. Nor were inhabitants of the world born. Your dead will live. Their corpses will rise. You who lie in the dust, awake and shout for joy. For your dew is as the dew of the dawn, and the earth will give birth to the departed spirits. Come, my people, enter your rooms. Close your doors behind you. Hide for just a little while, until indignation runs its course. For behold, Yahuwah is about to come from his place, to punish the inhabitants of the earth for their iniquity, and the earth will reveal her bloodshed and will no longer cover her slain. It keeps on going, and it's beautiful. Thank you, guys. That was a very good call to keep going. We're going to flip to Micah. And you heard how many ties there are into 90 different places in the Revelation, I'm sure, right? We could do the spot review, but it just sort of porpoises in and out of the whole conversation. Micah 4, if I can find it. It's not very big. All of Micah is beautiful and useful, and all of it is about the judgment. But we're going to flip to 4 to exhibit something a little different. When I get to verse 7, listen, perk your ears up really high. It will come about in the last days, chapter 4, verse 1. It will come about in the last days that the mountain of the house of Yahuwah will be established as the chief of the mountains. Does that sound like kingdoms, guys?
I'm sorry, where are you reading?
Micah 4.
Verse 1.
You there?
Got it.
Okay. And it will come about in the last days that the mountain of the house of Yahuwah will be established as the chief of the mountains. It will be raised above the hills, and the peoples will stream to it. Many nations will come and say, come, let us go to the mountain of Yahuwah and to the house of the God of Jacob, that he may teach us about his ways, and that we may walk in his paths. For from Zion will go forth Torah, even the word of Yahuwah from Jerusalem. He will judge between many peoples and render decisions for the mighty distant nations. Then they will hammer their swords into plowshares, their spears into pruning hooks. Nation will not lift up its sword against nation, and never again will they train for war. Each of them will sit under his vine and under his fig tree, with no one to make them afraid, for the mouth of Yahuwah of armies has spoken. Though all the peoples walk, each in the name of his God, as for us, we will walk in the name of Yahuwah our God forever and ever. In that day, declares Yahuwah, I will assemble the lame, gather the outcasts, even those whom I have afflicted, make the lame a remnant and the outcasts a strong nation. And Yahuwah will reign over them in Mount Zion from now on and forevermore. As for you, tower of the flock, hill of the daughter of Zion, to you it will come, even the former dominion will come, the kingdom of the daughter of Jerusalem. Remember that kingdom that's been born again, right? Now, why do you cry out loudly? Is there no king among you? Or has a counselor perished? That agony has gripped you like a woman in childbirth. Writhe and labor to give birth, daughter of Zion, like a woman in childbirth. For now you will go out of the city, dwell in the field, and go to Babylon. There you will be rescued. There Yahuwah will redeem you from the hand of your enemies. And how many nations have been assembled against you, who say, let her be polluted, and let our eyes gloat over Zion. But they do not know the thoughts of Yahuwah, and they do not understand his purpose. For he has gathered them like sheaves to the threshing floor. Arise and thresh, daughter of Zion. For your horn I will make iron. Your hooves I will make bronze, that you may pulverize many people, that you may devote to Yahuwah their unjust gain, and the wealth to Yahuwah of all the earth. You know what? I mean, because we were just talking about the Assyrian, and I was alluding to it in Isaiah 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. We're going to keep going just a little bit. Now muster your troops, daughter of troops. They have laid, chapter 5. They have laid siege against us. With a rod they will smite the judge of Israel on the cheek. But as for you, Bethlehem Ephratah, too little to be among the clans of Judah, from you one will go forth for me to be ruler in Israel. We know who that is. That's the king, right? His goings forth are from long ago, from the days of eternity. Therefore, he will give them up. Therefore, he'll give them up, right? Until the time when she who is in labor and has borne a child. Are you guys reading this? It's crazy, right? It's right there. There will be another, she who is in labor born a child. There will be another fulfillment. And the king will give them up until the kingdom. Then the remainder of his brethren will return to the sons of Israel, and he will arise and shepherd his flock in the strength of Yahuwah, in the majesty of the name of Yahuwah his God. They will remain, because at that time he will be great to the ends of the earth. This one will be our peace. When the Assyrian, remember in Isaiah it says, before the child knows the difference between right and wrong, the king of Assyria will descend upon the land. When the Assyrian invades our land, when he tramples on our citadels, then we will raise against him 7 shepherds and 8 leaders of men. They will shepherd the land of Assyria with the sword, the land of Nimrod at its entrances, and he will deliver us from the Assyrian when he attacks our land and when he tramples our territory. Then the remnant of Jacob will be among many peoples, like the dew from Yahuwah, not just the remnant of Judah, right? All the tribes which have been scattered, like showers on vegetation which do not wait for man or delay for sons of men. The remnant of Jacob will be among the nations, among many peoples, like a lion among the beasts of the forest, like a young lion among the flocks of sheep, which if he passes through tramples down and tears, and there is none to rescue. Your hand will be lifted up against your adversaries, and all your enemies will be cut off. It will be in that day, declares Yahuwah, that I will cut off your horses from among you and destroy your chariots. I will also cut off the cities of your land and tear down all your fortifications. I'll cut off sorceries from your hand, and you will have fortune tellers no more. I'll cut off your carved images and your sacred pillars from among you, so that you will no longer bow down to the work of your hands. I will root out your Asherim from among you. And I'm not going to bother to tell you guys tonight what Asherim are. I will root out your Asherim from among you and destroy your cities. I will execute vengeance and anger and wrath on the nations which have not obeyed. Oh, it keeps going and going. It's so good, guys. But back to the 144,000, right? Standing on Mount Zion, which we were reading about a few times. The remnant of Yahuwah. They have their father's name on their forehead. We know what the father's name on the forehead is, right?
Revelation 14.
Well, it's Revelation 14, but it's also Ezekiel right around 9 and 10, where it says, do you see the detestable things done in my name, son of man? You'll see even more detestable things. And he keeps showing them idolatry, false worship. And he says, all those who mourn for the detestable things, put a seal. He tells Jesus, well, the man clothed in linen with the writing kit at his side, which I think we can surmise is Jesus, to sign the foreheads of all those who mourn for the detestable things. But also, not only is it that, but Deuteronomy 6.
So why would they?
Go ahead.
So why would they mourn for detestable things?
I mourn for the detestable things done, especially the detestable things done in the church. Because that's supposed to be a haven away from idolatry.
Yes.
And when the idolatry is so infiltrated that the people don't even realize it, Tiffany will tell you, it drives me nuts.
Like when you see a transgender flag on Route 19
On a church?
in a Lutheran church, in the yard of the Lutheran church, there's a transgender
Yeah.
flag.
That's a great example of what's not, it's not according to God's Torah, right? It's not according to God's Torah. We're supposed to love these people. We're supposed to make them feel accepted. I don't disagree with loving and making
No,
people
but
feel
they're
accepted.
actually.
But we're not supposed to celebrate. We're not supposed to uphold things that aren't God's instructions as good.
Because
When we call good evil and
it's
evil
raising
good,
a
we're in
banner-
trouble.
It's a banner of
Hi, Joe.
lawlessness. Yeah. Hey, Joe.
Deuteronomy 6. Is everybody there?
Yes, we're there.
Remember, Deuteronomy 5. I want to make sure I'm telling you right here. Yeah. Deuteronomy 5 is the 10 Commandments. So, 10 words, the 10 Devarim, but nonetheless. So Deuteronomy 6. Now this is the commandment, the statutes, and the judgments which Yahuwah your God has commanded me, this is Moses speaking, to teach you, that you might do them in the land where you are going over to possess, so that you and your son and your grandson might fear Yahuwah. So why do we do the commandments? So that we might fear God. To keep his statutes and his commandments, which I command you, all the days of your life. And why else do we do them? That our days may be prolonged. O Israel, you should listen and be careful to do it. Not just Jews, by the way, not just Judah, and not just Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, all the tribes. O Israel, you should listen and be careful to do it, that it may be well with you, and that you may multiply greatly, just as Yahuwah, the God of your fathers, has promised you, in a land flowing with milk and honey.
What verse?
Thank you. Sorry, Wes. You could just tell me out loud. It's okay. Deuteronomy 6, we're now in the Shema, 6:4. Hear, O Israel, hear, man who seeks God, who struggles with God, who wrestles with God. Yahuwah is our God. Yahuwah is one. You shall love Yahuwah your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. These words which I am commanding you today shall be on your heart. You shall teach them diligently to your sons, and shall talk of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up. I want everybody to read this out loud. You shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontals on your forehead. So, what's that seal of the living God look like? Looks a lot like Torah, doesn't it? Signed by Jesus, because he's the only one who can keep it. But it looks a lot like Torah. There's a lot more verses. James 1:18, Jeremiah 2:3, but that's okay. We're not going to go into those for the moment because I think the point is made there with Deuteronomy pretty succinctly. There is a statement here which is kind of strange and throws a lot of people off. It says these, the 144,000, are the ones,
Where are you reading?
sorry, Revelation 14, verse 4.
If he doesn't say, assume it's.
This is, I'm sorry, in sign language, right?
Revelation 14.
Yeah, that was the Chad tip, right? If he doesn't say, it's back to Revelation.
It's actually correct. That's like every time.
Yeah, no,
That's
it is
wrong.
definitely every time because I'm just like
Yeah.
on my stream here.
Uh-huh.
So the 144,000, they sing a new song, but in verse 14, chapter 14, verse 4, these are the ones who have not been defiled with women, for they have kept themselves. It's sometimes defined as chaste, and they follow the Lamb wherever he goes. Here's the thing. Sleeping with your wife is not defiled with women. Okay? I'm just going to lay that out. Sleeping with your wife is not defiled with women. That's not what this means. Okay? And in fact, the word, sometimes it says they are virgins in certain translations. It says they are chaste. It says they are pure. It should say they are presentable. Okay? Because the root of this word, it's forget it. I don't remember. But anyway, the root of this word is about, it means virgin sometimes. It means pure sometimes. But what it actually means is presentable. And in fact, Paul uses it in 2 Corinthians to say, I have taught you so that you may be presentable before God. He uses the same word as presentable. Okay? So how are we presentable? We actually already know the answer. We're presentable through Messiah, Jesus, and through no other means. We're presentable through Jesus. So the next verse affirms it. It says they follow the Lamb wherever he goes. So how are you presentable? Because Jesus makes you presentable. And how does Jesus make you presentable? He says, if you love me, you'll keep my commandments. And if you love me, you must follow after me. This is a consistent gospel that has never changed.
So it's obedience.
It is obedience. It is asking him to be the one who makes you presentable through his blood. And it is obedience. It's following him. That is what it means here to be chaste, to be not defiled with women. It doesn't mean you don't, look, David's going to be one of these people, even though he had a bunch of wives, right? And he's going to be one of these people, even though he was a murderer and an adulterer. And he's going to be one of these people because he followed God. And he took God at his word, and he knew that God was the means of his salvation. Read the Psalms. We celebrate the Psalms as Christians. David was a Christian. He just didn't happen to know the name of Jesus, although he did. He didn't happen to know the name of Jesus. The name Yehoshua just means Yahuwah is salvation. So he did know that name. Anyway. To be blameless. I wrote down Zephaniah 3:13. Let's see if it's relevant or if it's as random as the rest of the stuff I wrote down tonight.
Zephaniah what?
3:13. And I keep flipping right past it every time I try.
That's a tiny book. It's much easier on my phone.
Micah, Nahum, Habakkuk, and Zephaniah.
Somewhat random.
What did you say?
The remnant of Israel in 12. But I will leave among you a humble and lowly people.
Zephaniah 12?
Zephaniah 3:12 and 13. I will leave among you a humble and lowly people. They will take refuge in the name of Yahuwah.
Amen.
The remnant of Israel will do no wrong and tell no lies. Nor will a deceitful tongue be found in their mouths, for they will feed and lie down with no one to make them tremble. A humble and lowly people who takes refuge in the name of Yahweh. It's pretty straightforward, right? And I wanted to say Pergamos, but it's not Pergamos. It's Parthenos. Parthenos is to be presentable, and it does sometimes mean pure. And in the context of a woman who's supposed to be presented to a husband, it would mean virgin in those days because that's presentable, right? So that's where we get that translation of virgins. It's not wrong. It's just kind of narrow for the circumstances here. Let me see where my notes are at.
Where were you reading? Zephaniah 3:13?
Yeah, 3:12
3:12?
and then 3:13.
Zephaniah 3:12?
Yeah,
Mine one goes to 8.
Are you in Zephaniah or are you in Zechariah?
they'll get you with that one.
You're close. Sorry.
Zephaniah's really close to the end. There's
But it was really only for that 2 verses there.
Okay, I got it.
it's
Sorry, I
two
was
away
in,
from
I was
Zechariah.
in the wrong place.
But yeah, Paul says in 2 Corinthians, let's find it. I'm winging it here because I didn't write down where I think it's. I think I can find it pretty quickly. Yeah, here we go. 2 Corinthians 11:2 is where he uses the root word that's Parthenos. 11:2, he says, "For I am jealous for you with a godly jealousy, for I betrothed you to one husband, so that to Christ I may present you as a pure," and they translate it rightly in the NASB, as a pure virgin. Now, what does that mean? 2 Corinthians 11, verses 2. So that I may make you presentable. I betrothed you to one husband, so that to Christ, that's to get rid of idols, right? When he says to one husband, it's to get rid of idols, so that you're appropriately pure. And that's really what it's talking about, getting rid of idolatry in the context of all this stuff. Committed to one. Well said. So let's not go down this road that you have to be never having a wife, never having any sexual congress in life. Otherwise, literally, at least 10 of the 12 apostles are out. King David's out, right? I mean, these people couldn't be on the list. All of Abraham's out. All of the people that God held up were married. All of them, right? I can't think of a single exception. Could you?
All of them are what?
All of the people that God held up, that were great men of God in the Bible, at least 9 out of 10 were married. So let's not get this weird ideology that you have to be perpetual virgin in order to be in God's highest level of favor. This is clearly about commitment to one God and no idols. The rest of the whole rest of it talks about, and we talked about the reaping of the earth, but the whole rest of 14 up until the reaping of the earth talks about not worshiping the beast, not taking the mark, and it's an affirmation of that presentable status. It's the whole point of the signature on the forehead. God is communicating so radically and loudly what he wants.
But I thought the signature, or God was going to give you one signature and somebody else was to give you the other, right?
Only one signature. And it's actually God sending out in Ezekiel 10, God sends out Jesus, the man clothed in white linen with the writing kit at his side, which is clearly the one who has the right to do it. So there's only one who has the right to do it. He sends out the man clothed in linen to sign the forehead of each person. So it's God sending out Jesus to put his seal, the seal of God and of the Lamb, on the foreheads of all of the people who are found acceptable, who are found presentable, who are found pure. Well, we actually, you know what? We need to go there. So I'm going to have you flip a little ahead, I think. Is it only one chapter? I just passed right by it then.
So a lot of these people, when they're pure, they were married and they committed sins, but as long as you have God in your heart, then you will get the signature, right?
Absolutely. That's the whole bit. There is not one who is righteous. Not one. The signature comes from Jesus, and it comes from following him and making that conscious decision to follow him and to accept his blood sacrifice for all the things we've done wrong and all the things we will. Because none of us is going to live perfect righteous anyway. It ain't happening. I am looking for the next conversation about the 144,000. And I know it's here.
That's all. We all do stuff. And we all do stuff.
I'm afraid I might have to give up.
Gotta get some more water.
I'm afraid I might have to give up on that. I don't know why I can't find it right now, but so be it. Well, that's okay. So the 144,000, they know the Song of Moses and the Song of the Lamb. It must be before that we already covered. We've covered it on many occasions. And it says they keep the commands of God and they follow the testimony of Jesus. It's just over and over and over again, the same statements. You don't get to stick your fist up in the air and say, Jesus, and then go do whatever you want. You have to seek God. You will fail, but you have to seek God. You have to seek, and you seek God by seeking, by reading what he says he likes and going after it with all your heart and soul and mind and strength. Isn't that what we just read in Deuteronomy? Right? Well, is sort of starting at the end and then working backwards with Revelation 14. But I think that, here we go. Revelation 14. Here is the perseverance, 14 verse 12. Here's the perseverance of the saints who keep the commands of God and their faith in Jesus. He's a very good communicator if we just listen.
This calls for patient endurance on the part of the people of God who keeps his commands and remain faithful to Jesus.
He's a very good communicator, isn't he? When the time that Jesus spoke about in Matthew and that Jesus spoke about in Revelation 14 comes to reap the earth, he will take out everybody out of his kingdom that doesn't belong. That's what both of these things say. And the ones that remain will shine like the sun forever and ever. We have a great hope to look forward to and a lot of trouble on the way, but it's going to be for a short time. That's we were promised. We just read that, right? So when the time comes, when the troubles come, look to the rock from which you were cut. Look to the things that are eternal. Look to the things that don't change. And shut your door for a little while and let the indignation pass by. Because you know that your salvation is coming soon. Wes, would you like to close us in prayer? Sure. Thank you.
Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this chance to look at your word, and thank you for Aaron and all that he's brought to us tonight and guiding us through these different areas of your word. And we just rejoice in that we see the way they resonate with each other, the way that we see the truth of the revelation of your son Jesus and his salvation through all the different chapters in the Old Testament through Revelation. And we just pray, Lord, that we would not just be hearers of the word, but doers of the word as we go forth. And that you would watch over us through this night and through this season. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thanks, Wes. Now, how many times did we read about when the time gives for the woman to give, it comes for the woman to give birth? Even just tonight?
Like 4.
Wild, right?
Yeah.
Shabbat shalom, all.
Yeah, please turn it on.
Is that-